What can Netflix do to save itself? Do they even need saving? For those of you who somehow didn't hear what happened last week with Netflix, they lost subscribers for the first time in over a decade, if I understand correctly. Now, they were expecting subscriber growth to slow down, but they were not expecting to lose 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter of this year. That's January through March. Now, there are a few caveats to go with that. For instance, they lost 700,000 subscribers in Russia for obvious reasons. But they also lost 600,000 paying subscribers in the US and Canada in that same time. And overall, they lost 200,000, and they're expecting to lose another 2 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year. So is this a big deal? You're darn right it's a big deal. This is sending shockwaves through the whole streaming world. And now the question is, what can or should or will Netflix do going forward? Well, I've got 4 things that they ought to be considering. So let's dive in. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video and want to see more just like it. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right, so let's dive into this issue of what Netflix can do to help itself going forward. First of all, we should back up and ask, is Netflix really in crisis mode? I mean, they still have well over 200 million subscribers. Is this really that big a deal for a company so big? Well, yeah, it kind of is, because it's really all about the trends. So while they are definitely still the biggest kid on the block as far as streaming services go, losing subscribers for the first time in a decade is going to send off some alarm bells, and it's going to tell you that you are heading in the wrong direction, and you better change course as soon as you can. So, like I said, I've got 4 ideas for what Netflix can do to help itself, and I'm going to give them to you in ascending order of how impactful they would be on your experience watching Netflix. The first one would be they need to make better recommendations. Look, maybe it's just me, but when I log into Netflix and they show me, recommended titles or, whatever the categories are, it really looks to me like they're pushing shows that they want me to watch. They're not pushing shows that they think I want to watch. Now, this is only true to a certain extent. If I log into your Netflix, the recommendations will look a little bit different between yours and mine, but they really don't go far enough, in my opinion, as far as making their recommendations based on your watch history, not on what they want to make happen. Number 2 is Netflix needs to go for quality over quantity. And in this, they need to take a cue from their competitors, from HBO Max and Hulu and Prime Video and Apple TV+. All of those services provide really, really high quality content, not necessarily tons and tons of it. Now, I get why they did this. Okay, they were able to see the writing on the wall a few years ago. They saw all these streaming competitors coming up over the horizon, and they knew that the likes of HBO Max and Disney+, they were going to take their toys out of the Netflix sandbox and, play with them on their own. One of the most recent examples of this is when Disney finally clawed back their Marvel properties, right? We had those Marvel on Netflix shows like Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and Disney took them back. They're not on Netflix anymore. So whatever valuable intellectual property Netflix was able to get belonged to others. And so they said to themselves, well, shoot, we're going to lose all that. We'd better get some of our own. And so they just started cooking spaghetti and throwing it at the wall as fast as they could, hoping that something would stick. Sometimes things did, most of the time it didn't. But it really was a lot of spaghetti. Over at The Motley Fool, they noted that Netflix this year is planning to spend $18 billion on content, which is the equivalent to the budgets of the 60 most expensive movies ever made in 1 year. And again, they're chucking this spaghetti at the wall, hoping that something will stick, hoping that they come up with the next great intellectual property, something like Star Wars or Marvel Comics or The Lord of the Rings or whatever. Now, you can't manufacture a piece of mega intellectual property on command, but you're sure not going to do it by creating, hundreds and hundreds of mediocre titles. It's going to have to be something really good. And it is possible that something like that could work out. I mean, look at those pieces of mega IP, something like Star Wars. Star Wars wasn't Star Wars until it was released and became Star Wars, right? Now, there are some who will argue that the atomization of our culture right now means that you can't have a big piece of IP like that. Well, maybe, but then just look at the MCU. It can be done. So yeah, they need to focus on quality over quantity. Instead of 18 billion on a bunch of mediocre shows, they could cut that in half and still have plenty to spend on content that would be more broadly appealing and get more people talking to each other about it. Speaking of which, and now we're getting into the stuff that has made Netflix for a long time, it's time to ditch the binge model. One of Netflix's greatest strengths, the binge model, has also been one of its greatest weaknesses, because there's frankly no way to build up an intellectual property when you're releasing a whole bunch of content all at once. Now, you may prefer that model, and that's fine for you personally, but when you're building a brand, when you're building intellectual property, it's tough to do that without word of mouth. And word of mouth can't build if people don't have a chance to talk to each other about it. And it's not just the water cooler conversation or you talking with your friends and family about what you're watching. It's also the internet secondary content machine. Things like, hey, this channel. Your favorite bloggers, the critics out there, they don't have a chance really to talk about Netflix titles in the same way as they can other titles on other services, because you take something like Stranger Things. Well, Stranger Things is going to be released all at once in that binge model. And let's say you're a blogger and you're going to write about Stranger Things. Well, how do you write about one episode? You don't know where your audience is in that. You don't know if they binged it or if they're taking it a little bit slower, right? So it's tougher for you to engage with your audience if you are a blogger or a critic or content creator in that way. So Netflix may have a great property, but they don't have a great way for it to build up over time and to get some cultural momentum going. Now, that's not to say they don't have quality content, of course. I already mentioned Stranger Things. They've got Bridgerton was a recent mega hit. But once those shows are out there, yeah, people might talk about them for a week or two, but then they won't. Remember Squid Game? That was massively popular. And when was the last time you remember somebody talking about it? And now we get to our last one. And this one is, for me, the most controversial, but that is advertise. Netflix is going to need to advertise. Now, let me be clear, I do not like this idea at all. I hate commercials. I hate watching commercials. I've always loved that Netflix kept things simple and said, nope, we don't run ads. And here's the price you're going to pay for our service. But the thing is, it does make sense for some subscribers. If Netflix is going to charge $15.50 for the HD, that middle of the road package, it makes sense for them to say, hey, instead of $15, here's a $10 tier for those who want to pay a little bit less and don't mind watching a few commercials. There are plenty of you out there who don't mind those commercials, and that's great. You should have that option. So it makes sense for a lot of viewers, but it also makes a lot of sense for Netflix itself because, frankly, Netflix, with its 200+ million subscriber base, is going to be able to command a premium for that ad space. Again, I don't love it, but yeah, it's probably gotta happen, and Netflix has been dropping hints to that effect for the last little while. So is Netflix in trouble? Well, I don't know, that might be putting it a bit harshly, right? Netflix is still Netflix. They're still the biggest kid on the block, and they're not going anywhere. But this is a massive wake-up call for Netflix, and it's a big wake-up call for its competitors as well. If Netflix has reached its saturation point, what does that tell you for those who came later? Are they ever going to get to that 200 million subscriber mark? Are they going to get beyond that? Time will tell, but everybody's taking a hard look at this and asking, yeah, what does this mean for streaming in the long term? I guess we'll see. Now, I'd love to get your take on this, so head down to the comments and let me know what you think of all this. Would you like an ad-supported tier? Do you want them to get rid of the binge model? Let me know how you feel. And don't forget to join me every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel for the live streams where we can hash these topics out live. I'd love to see you there. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll see you next time.